All right, let's just jump right in. We'll just start with intros. I guess introduce yourself and describe your project in a few sentences, and we'll go from there. We'll go down this way, maybe.
Cool. I'm Yonatan Sompolinsky, PhD student at the Hebrew University, computer science. I've co-authored several blockchain protocols, Ghost, Spectre, recently Phantom. Mainly my work is about generalizing over Satoshi's chain paradigm and creating block DAG, proof of work-based block DAGs. And I've co-founded DAGlabs, which is a project to implement a highly scalable block DAG, currently mainly focusing on cryptocurrencies.
Great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chia. I'm the founder and CEO of QuarkChain. We are working on the blockchain scalability issues using the horizontal scalability technologies, which are inspired by the technologies that are already developed in Google and Facebook. So our core team members are software engineers from Facebook and Google, which have extensive experience in designing, implementing, debugging, maintaining, and optimizing these systems. I personally have a PhD degree from Georgia Institute of Technology.
I'm Zhao. I'm the Senior Vice President of BTCC, but I'm full-time on our mining pool business, so I'm a full-time mining pool runner.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So my name is Zhuling. So I'm the co-founder and COO of aelf. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to do a high-performance and flexible blockchain that really helps developers to build business use cases on top of blockchain. Prior to this, I was a strategy consultant, so advise large corporates and governments on how technology can help them on certain aspects.
Great. So you guys are, maybe with the exception of Denver, trying to solve scalability. So what are the main factors that prevent current blockchains like Bitcoin, Ethereum from getting to 10,000 TPS? And anyone can just, respond.
Simple, there are at least two facts from the mining perspective. First is the size of the block. It's only that big. It can only contain that many trades. And second is the time of each block that is being generated. It takes 10 minutes averagely to generate each block. So that's two facts that are limiting the transaction per second numbers to reach higher. That's my understanding.
If you think about Ethereum, it is a little bit faster than Bitcoin, and they're thinking about some solutions to scaling. Do you have any thoughts about their current thinking around scaling the Ethereum blockchain itself?
So probably I can give a short intro. Basically, we saw this scalability solutions to blockchain area now, working towards two directions. One is called vertical scalability, which basic idea is to improve single blockchain performance. Another direction we are looking at, is growing, is called horizontal scalability, which essentially is using called sharding technologies that address the scalability problem. So from vertical perspective, early stage, for example, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, try to improve by reduce the block interval from 10 minutes to 2.5 minutes, and Bitcoin Cash improve the block size from 1 megabytes to 8 megabytes. And with the Ethereum, with new consensus using Ghost algorithm, and now it can further reduce the block interval to 15 seconds. And now people further proposing new consensus, proof of stake, dedicated proof of stake, like EOS that is proposing. And however, when we go back to the centralized world, how vertical scalability works is that as the performance growth, the cost is corresponding because of physical limits, either in terms of the hardware or also in terms of network propagations, then the cost will grow exponentially high. And that's why Google and Facebook, they're working towards a different paradigm that is horizontal scalability by adding more machines and more shards to the system, so the system capacity can be increased as the number of the shards increases. That's also how we predict the future of blockchains that it can resort to the horizontal scalability so that we are able to like circumvent existing physical limits on the, like for example, superfull node capability and also network propagation issues.
And then you have a very different paradigm than most blockchains out there today. Do you want to talk about that paradigm itself, as contrasted with what Ethereum and other chains are doing?
So actually, the block DAG is, I would say, a solution to the short-term scaling, say 1, 2, 3 orders of magnitude, simply because you can create, say, 1 block per second, maybe more, without having orphan blocks. You just don't follow the longest chain, you just follow some algorithm like Spectre or Phantom or other versions. And just, by the way, Ethereum doesn't really use Ghost. They just, not even modified Ghost. They use longest chain, actually. It's complicated to explain it, but it's not well known that they don't use Ghost.
That's why I read from the white paper.
Yes, correct, actually. So, back to the point, block DAGs are a solution for the short-term scalability, but long-term scalability, you have to modify the paradigm. So while we are focusing on Satoshi's paradigm of proof of work, and that everyone verifies everything, the long-term solution is obviously sharding, layer 2, things that relax the strict paradigm of Satoshi's work.
I see. How about?
So for us, the first thing that we're experimenting is to move from POW to DPoS, because one thing that we realize is that, I think for a fully centralized, there's always a trade-off, in terms of efficiency, security, and also decentralization. So that also depends on, so in my personal view, there will be different blockchains that serves different purposes. If we're talking about a storage of value, which needs absolute security, and you don't need to trust anyone at all, I think POW at the current stage works the best. But even you look deep into POW right now, looking at all the mining pools, we actually talked about this at the backstage. There are just less than 100 full nodes are actually running the full the block production. Yeah, so that's why we think POW right now is de facto a dedicated proof of work. That's why for us to reach high scalability right now, we're testing DPoS. And on top of that, what we're doing here is for the dedicated nodes, instead of just allowing them to be one computer, we allow them to run on a group of computers to bring in the cloud computing concept. So this also allows more complicated smart contracts to be run on top of us. And we do use a multi-chain structure so that this allows parallel processing to host different smart contracts on different chains to achieve flexibility for that. Yeah.
So you make an interesting point. You're trading off non-scalability so you're trading off decentralization for scalability, right? So as you become more scalable, as you become less decentralized or more centralized by, like you said, DPoS. Is that the main trade-off here? Or, of course, Visa is fully centralized. They can scale over any decentralized system. But is that the only trade-off, do you think?
I think the fact that there are less than 100 nodes that actually are active both on validation and mining doesn't mean it's centralized. You can scale up so there's a difference between a system where it's like DPoS, where people own the coins, and if you don't own the coins, then you can't participate, and a proof of work system where you know what's happening in the system, you can verify if you want. If you want to invest the money in verifying, you can. So I don't think that's a trade-off. The trade-off is or maybe the liability is where if you have a system where no one understands what's going on in the inner workings of the protocol, then that's more hindering to the decentralization, I think, to the trust.
Right. So we discussed backstage that if every miner runs a full node, then that's more decentralized, but it doesn't give up scalability per se, right?
If you ask how, you have two components to trustless and decentralization. One component is how many people actually, or how many different economic entities actually run, validate, and have a say in the protocol. So even if you have thousands of full nodes that don't have a say in the protocol, they can just set out the alarm, it's still decentralized, because even if it's enough that 20 miners do that. Versus a system where you have maybe hundreds of participants, but no one can understand what's going inside of the protocol. No one can join the game freely. I think it's less decentralized.
And in addition, we also discussed like all the miners in the running the full node, they are actually competing with each other. So they are basically create some kind of open market in this hash power. Actually, we also have similar like open market concept when we have our design.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your design?
So basically, we have multiple shards. Different shards have its difficulty and also coin-based reward. And in addition, I would say network quality, which is basically how local it is to its nearby miners. So that any miners can choose any shard to mine. It's like a shard is kind of seller, which sells its coin-based reward with the hash power as kind of cryptocurrency. And the miners is like kind of buyer, which is using its crypto, like a hash power as the currency, but to buy as much as the coin-based reward according to these parameters. So we like to create this kind of open market so that people, everybody want just achieve for their best benefits, but the overall result of the collective behaviors of all the miners can yield the best benefits of everybody, like protecting the transactions, achieve security, and also achieve high scalability. That's our ideas of this open market.
Okay, just to add on, what I talked about just now, I think decentralization is probably the means to reach a game theory that actually helps to prevent people to do things that is not healthy for the ecosystem, yes. Right? So that's also something that either this is dedicated or this is like fully decentralized. As long as you design the system right, you do introduce a game theory into that. So my point here is that we're moving from POW to DPoS because more towards the view that we want to be a powerful and scalable for smart contract. I don't think you need to do a DPoS for Bitcoin. Yeah, I don't think so. But if we're talking about smart contract, I think it's worth to explore different approaches on that.
And so going down to POS, the thread, how would you compare yourself to like something like EOS, who's like fully 100% DPoS, and they've kind of launched recently?
Yeah, okay. So two things is, first of all, we're doing a multi-chain structure so that we're not hosting thousands of smart contracts on one blockchain. So this also means that if one smart contract gets stuck, the other ones can still run smoothly on their own chains. This also gives them flexibility. And the second part is, instead of having to enhance one computer as a full node to be scalable, we let a group of computers to organize themselves as one node. Yeah, so this allows one single node to scale up.
I see. So you guys have all different paradigms and approaches. Do you have any concerns around the fact that maybe various degrees of rigor to your approach? It's all kind of experimental in a sense. What are you thinking around that?
So I think personally that the proof of work paradigm was part of the success of Satoshi's work, is that you have a large audience that understands the protocol. So I bet like 80% of the people who are sitting here either understand proof of work or can be explained in a short while. And that's my point of trust. So even if it's run by a few nodes, going back to the previous point, people understand what's going on in these systems. So we have like this vertical, all the community maintain the same paradigm and approach. Now, there should be presumably better paradigms. The problem is that if you're a centralized company, then you can enjoy a better tech by developing this paradigm. But in the decentralized environment, you have to build trust in this technology, in your new protocol. And here you have these plethora of solutions that maybe they're all legitimate, but it's very difficult to build, to convince different people with different paradigms. We have this almost sharding of the network and fragmentation to different different solutions. And even if you had the formal model, it's very difficult to convince people if the model is complicated, if it's not intuitive.
Right. I mean, for me, a lot of approaches seem reasonable at first glance, but I have no idea whether it'll work out in the real world when there's a lot of value accumulated in that chain. I mean, yeah, you want to comment on?
So actually, I completely agree. Like understanding of this technology is very important to the decentralized world. Like for us, like basically we are focusing on horizontal scalability with sharding technologies. But a lot of questions people ask me, oh, what is sharding and why it works? And say, hey, actually sharding is not a new term that invented for blockchain. Actually already exists in the centralized system for decades. And the point is that a lot of people have no idea why like Google and Facebook address the problem in this way. And so that is one of our job is to make these things simple to understand. For example, which part of system we are inspired from Google and Facebook's, and why it can work towards blockchain. So I think there's this educational process that we need to help people and also interact with our community to say, hey, if something is missing or misunderstanding. I think the great of like Google's, Facebook's system is that when they publish their papers, every engineer after reading their papers, oh, it's very easy to understand. And everybody say, hey, I can create something like that. So I feel once some project reaching that kind of level, that demonstrates partial success because everybody can understand it easily. And so that, for example, what is its security model and what is the networking model, all kinds of these details, then naturally it will become easy to reach kind of a social consensus of these technologies.
Yeah, so I want to move on to mining since we have a panelist here that's from the mining pool. So what's your perspective on, say, if the whole industry moves towards other consensus algorithms other than proof of work?
Good question. In the history of Bitcoin, we have seen many debates about scaling it, starting from a couple of years ago, and it lasted for at least 2 years, but without reaching any consensus. In my understanding, that is a good fact, telling us that decentralization does have some limitations. So then people were talking about new consensus models, such as POS, such as DPoS, to make this whole network more efficient. So in my opinion, I don't think this whole industry will move, will change totally from POW to POS. It's more, on top of that, it's a question that we need to ask for the project developers. What is your goal of your chain? What kind of ecosystem you want to build on top of your chain? If your chain requires a very efficiency, extremely fast transactions to develop, then maybe the best way to do that is by a DPoS system or a POS system. If you want to create a chain that stores value like Bitcoin and make it extremely reliable and extremely stable, maybe POW is the way. So for myself as a pool runner, as a pool operator, I would say in future I will support both chains. Doesn't matter if you're a POW or POS, I will support you.
Yes.
Okay. So this is for everybody. What's your view on layer 2 solutions like Lightning, Raiden, and Lightning is already kind of on mainnet. they're possibly the one scaling solution that has actually launched sooner than most other approaches. And what's your view on that?
I think layer 2 is definitely important. It's happy to see that this industry is really trying to segment innovations into different parts. Look at scalability on different horizons, whether it's on the smart contract or virtual machine, or it's on the consensus, or even people are looking at at the network layer. How do we expedite for blockchain? So I think layer 2 is also another important thing to look at. Probably also this is something that it's also very important to have layer 1 and layer 2 as a whole package solution.
But it is competitive to every solution on this panel today, right? Layer 2 solutions. It's competitive to...
We don't feel it's competitive to our protocol. You have to have a base layer that's trustless and scalable. So imagine like opening a channel, waiting a few hours. A millennial won't wait for a few hours to open a channel. And we're impatient. So you have to have the base layer, which has the most, like in the trade-off, it's the most trustless. And then long-term scalability has to have, the real economic activity should be off-chain. Lightning. I personally think they should have went on a simpler solution first, like just payment hubs, payment channels without the routing, without these attempts. But given what's done, I think that's the right course.
Yeah. I think like off-chain and like kind of layer 2, they are actually beneficial with each other. Like for example, as you mentioned, nobody would like to wait for several hours for a payment channel to be created. And also there are a lot of has a small transaction with fixed parties. They're able to handle by layer 2 solutions, off-chain solutions, so that the on-chain capacity can be used to perform more valuable tasks. And so I think they combine together. We are looking forward to more richer ecosystem on top of the blockchain system.
Okay, interesting. So let's say you guys solve the problem of 10K TPS, and you guys are all starting your own public chain. What are some of the initial use cases that you guys are targeting to be built on top of this highly scalable chain? Have you thought about that?
Well, everyone in this room thought about that.
Right.
It's a big problem. We're still figuring it out, to be honest. We've ruled out some use cases, so we're in our system we're not going for general computation as of yet. We're not aiming for endpoint payments. We're not trying to compete with Visa. In between, there are many interesting stuff like programmable money, which is not based on I guess fully expressive Turing complete computations. Settlement, but that's generally the range that we're looking at.
Yeah, so another way to phrase this question, what are the applications out there that are just waiting for this TPS to appear before they deploy that use case onto a blockchain, right?
Probably one is DAGs.
Right.
Like right now, I know there are several projects that are using smart contract to deploy to run DAGs to exchange, for example, ERC20-based tokens. However, I heard a lot of complaints that their transaction per second is greatly limited by 15 seconds per second Ethereum capability. Like imagine right now, Binance have hundreds, I think 200 or 300 trading pairs. And imagine each second there's only one transaction on each trading pairs. That require at least hundreds of transactions per second. And so that is a critical issues now for this DAGs to be gaining these trading volumes and popularities these days.
Okay. How about?
Yeah, I mean, from our side, just looking from a use case point of view, I'm quite bullish about gaming because that's where the users are easy to understand what is virtual currency, what is something that is completely digital. Also, this is something that's fun, so I think it's perfect for adoption purpose. Of course, financial institution is something that has been proven that has a lot of stake to be put on blockchain. And the other industry that I'm very excited to see is about data ownership. Yeah, because blockchain is about, part of the use is about, okay, confirm ownership and also have a fair transaction. If we look at the traditional internet business, it's always about free product to trade for the ownership of your data without even the customers knowing that. But on blockchain, this is something that probably we can turn it around. Pay for the service, but also withhold whatever data that you possess. So I think this is going to change the whole business model at a big time.
I want to go back to mining for a second. As you look at all these new chains coming up, are you guys doing anything to kind of have an opinion and prepare for some of these, say, proof of work chains that instead of just, or are you just very rational in the sense that whatever is the most profitable today, we'll just double down on that versus looking ahead? Do you guys look ahead at all or just look for the next 10 minutes? That's for you, Denver, for mining.
That's for me.
Yeah.
Well, I think that people were just, some of them just tap their head and come up with an idea. But some of them are really looking to the weakness of the technology that we use currently and want to develop something new.
Okay. So this question may not be. I know you guys have been looking at other chains as well as you develop your own solution. I'm pretty sure, right? What's your prediction on how this is going to evolve in terms of like launch time? And you guys definitely know when you're going to launch your own net, but relative to other chains, how do you see this whole scalable chain movement evolving? How soon can developers start building a DEX with kind of performance that's close to a centralized exchange, for example?
So right now we have a testnet that offer like more than 5,000 transactions per second, and we have 100 test volunteers to help us to figure out any issues. And we are also going to publish our testnet next month. At the time we will offer different testnets in terms of like testnet size and also capacity. We are looking forward to achieve more than 10,000 transactions with a kind of capacity testnet, supporting EVM backward compatible smart contracts. So we are welcome all the app developers to test our network and to figure out bugs, and there will be a generous bounty for the developers.
Yeah, I mean, so we're launching our testnet in 2 weeks, where we will run it in a decentralized way, having all the different modules working at the same time as a whole package. So towards the end of this year, I think that's where a number of blockchains will be ready to at least provide smart contract support. So developers are going to have more choices besides Ethereum. One interesting I would like to see in the future is how we combine scalability plus privacy, because that probably could be a even more needed solution in the future. But that also needs a lot of collaboration, as an industry as a whole.
About the
I don't know about other projects. Our
Right.
project is set to test in it around December.
December, okay.
And mainnet assuming first quarter of 2019.
Okay. So we'll know in about 6 months if this is going to be true. 10,000 TPS or whatever TPS you guys are supporting. I think we're like 30 seconds. Any last thoughts and comment?
Just one comment, maybe it's more suitable for the beginning of the panel, but in general, proof of stake is not more scalable than proof of work. It just has different designs of the committee, but if you want everyone to verify everything, so the question of proof of work, proof of stake is orthogonal to that. Just there's some subtext that proof of stake is more scalable and it's not.
Right. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
I just want to share some view of blockchain. So we feel like the blockchain is come in a very early stage, similar to internet in 2000s. There are a lot of open areas, and even like in previous vertical scalability, now towards horizontal scalability and sharding technologies, there are a lot of open questions and open issues. But we feel very exciting about the future of the blockchain. We're in the hope that in a few years later, blockchain can be the real a value transfer network, make a similar impact as the information transfer network as internet does.
Well, as the mining pool runner, I'm happy to see new approaches to help blockchain technology to solve the scalability problem. And I'd love to see you guys' codes come up. I'd love to be part of your testnet.
Yeah, I think it's a really great period right now that everybody takes the liberty to try different approaches. The good thing about blockchain is that nobody is shut up. So you can always take if you don't agree with one idea, you can either fork or you build up something completely new. And of course, you always need to focus on how to build your community and people to support you. Because end of the day, this is open source. So it's not a one-man show. It has to be a community supporting the whole thing.
Okay. 2 more minutes. So let's talk more about, I'm very curious about the current efforts on Ethereum, back to Ethereum, because they are, they're kind of pioneers in this field. They have a full, totally complete language. They spawn off all these new tokens and new use cases. And then now, I guess part of the motivation for scaling Ethereum is that crypto kitties with about a few hundred daily active users could congest the chain. What's your perspective on these various efforts out there? And obviously you don't agree with those efforts because you're starting your own paradigms and approaches. So can you elaborate more on that?
Regarding
Ethereum's efforts, right?
Yeah, I think one big direction Ethereum is walking towards is Ethereum sharding. I think we are also see the great value of sharding, but in terms of sharding, for example, Facebook has Facebook sharding scheme, Google has Google's Facebook sharding scheme, and also even different products have different sharding scheme. So we'll see there will be a future diversified in different kind of sharding schemes, and probably build out a lot of different kind of maybe Ethereum sharding, QuarkChain sharding, or maybe different mix of different sharding. We are looking forward to see in this blockchain world.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Quickly, I guess the clock just turned to 0 all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think Ethereum is great. It has demonstrated a lot of possibility of using blockchain, but it's also important to bring in some friendly computation onto the table, because ultimately, there are so many possibilities, and we're not just relying on Ethereum itself just to evolve at its own speed. Yeah, so everybody is contributing to that.
So sitting on the shoulders of giants.
Yep, that's a good way to end this. Great, thank you so much, panelists, and thank you for your insights. And then that's it, guys.